Hi, welcome to the training webinar. I'm Dale Franks, and this week we are going to talk about the journal and, the journal control and milestones, both in terms of form milestones and in terms of process timeline milestones, and how we can use them in our various applications. Before we talk about the journal control, I'd like to talk about this other control right here, which is the comment log, and it is the precursor of the journal control. Excuse me. The comment log control is pretty limited in what it can do, but it will keep a log of comments that people make ordered chronologically. So if I drop this comment log control on here and I run it, we can put a couple of comments in and see how it works. And I'm doing this for illustrative purposes mainly. I suppose I probably should have put something on the button other than text, but I can just throw some comments here. And the comment control itself by default goes all the way across the width of the form, or a table if you put it in a table, or in a section control, whatever it may be. And what it enables you to do is just throw a whole bunch of comments in, and it just keeps them chronologically, which is, I suppose, fine for some uses. If you just want to be able to track some occasional comments here and there, it's fine. It tells you who made the comment, when they made the comment, and what the comment was. Like I said, it's in chronological order. We used this as the primary comment control for several years. It does have a major drawback. And that drawback is that I can't actually thread anything. If I was to have multiple conversations going on at the same time, it would be very difficult to follow what was happening because it's purely chronologically ordered. So it's not really designed for conversations. Now, people used to have, some back and forth on it, but it's just not really well suited to that. It's largely well suited for just general comments that you only care about kind of in isolation. I'm not entirely sure, and in fact, we weren't entirely sure that that was a super great way of going about having comments on a form. And so what we decided to do, and I should have, but didn't, save my form when I deleted it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it and save and close the form, which is what I should have done so that it's marked for deletion so that I can quickly delete it here from the list of form controls, because we're not going to be looking at that again. Instead, what we're going to be looking at is the replacement for that control, which is the journal control. Now I've got one here running, and it does all of the things that we expect a modern journal control to do. So when I run a form that has this journal control, I can add my comments just as normal. But now, of course, it's threaded. So I can throw in threaded comments, as many as need be, or I could go back and add a new comment here, or I can add a second reply to this comment. And it becomes a lot easier to follow what's going on and what is happening in a conversation. Makes your life a little bit easier in terms of conversation. And you can have, obviously, separate threads. As you can see, I've put two threads here. I guess I'll reply to this one just to create a little reply. And so now we can see I have two separate conversations going, and that's fine. That's great. And it's a big improvement over what we had previously. And of course, if you have a profile image uploaded, it shows your profile, it shows who made the comment. Again, it shows when the comment was made, but it allows us to organize comments in a much better fashion and to be able to follow conversations much more easily. And if that were the only thing it did, it would still be a big improvement over the comment log. But wait, there's more. Because when you go into either a form or a process timeline, so let me go back to my webinar form here. And as you're going through all these little tabs on the form, there's a little tab here with a flag, and it says milestones. And similarly, if you go into a process timeline, there's also another flag that says milestones. What milestones are custom events that are associated with your process. Now, normally in a process timeline, we have events. For example, a process timeline activity. Well, the process timeline itself, there's a process timeline start event, there is an activity start, there's an activity end, there is a timeline complete. These are all events that occur in the context of the process timeline. Essentially, these are technical events that tell us where we are in the process itself in terms of our progress through the activities that we have configured for the process. At the business level, though, there are no real events that I can tie anything to. Now, it is possible to construct a process timeline in such a way that the activities themselves correlate to business events, but that's not, it's often not convenient to set things up that way. So the thing about milestones is it allows you to create business events that may or may not be related to what is happening in the process itself. So, for example, I might have a couple of different approval loops that I run, one for operations, one for IT, one for legal. And each one of these operations may take place inside their own approval loops. And what I might want to set up is an event that says legal approval has been completed. So there might be 2 or 3 steps to legal approval or 3 or 4 steps to IT approval. And I can create events, custom events that just say, the legal team has approved, the IT team has approved, operations has approved, what have you. So milestones enable me to create these events. And of course, if I'm going to create these events, I need to be able to display them somewhere, which brings us back to the journal control. So let's go into a form and let's drop a journal control into the form. And did we move the journal control? I'm trying to remember we did move the journal control. We moved it up to here. So here is our journal control. We only used to have 6 or 7 of these controls. We keep increasing the number of controls that are on the toolbar. The journal control has now been added there. So let's take a look at the journal control and its properties. First of all, you have the name. Of course, every control has a name. The journal control is no different. It faces the same name restrictions that every other control has. No special characters except for underscores or dashes, only letters or numbers. Otherwise, no spaces, less than 64 characters long, and it must be unique. Every form control has those same constraints for the name. Now we come to all of our optional controls or optional properties. First is the title. Now, you may or may not want a title for your journal control. Let's just go ahead and add this journal control here as is. And let me test or run the form so that we can take a look at it. So this is what the journal control looks like at runtime. And note up here, it says journal. So technically, if we were to go into the control itself and look at the title is blank. So if the title is blank, it is going to say journal in it. So what we might want to do is add our own text there. So we'll say conversations is the title of our journal control. And well, I didn't mean to expand that to the full screen, but now we've saved our form. So let's refresh. And now my journal control says conversations because that is indeed the title that I have. So leaving the title blank does not mean that there will not be a title on your journal control. It just means that the title will default to journal. So technically, title is a optional, an optional property, but you're probably going to want to use it rather than just show journal. And then we get to our scope. And it's hard to talk about scope without talking about milestone groups. So let's do that. When you create milestones, and we're going to create some and throw them in, and we're going to go over this all in detail. When you create milestones, you must place them in a milestone group. So we have this group milestone import test. And this milestone group contains several different milestones. Okay, great. That's fine. We don't need to know about the milestones, but we do need to know about the milestone groups. Every milestone belongs in a milestone group. And so I can specify the milestones that I want to appear on a form whenever I go around to get around to creating milestones by picking the milestone group that I want to display on the form. So really, I'm kind of doing things backwards. We're actually looking at the control and we don't really have any milestones built. But in the real world, you're probably going to want to build your milestones first before you put the control on the form. On the other hand, building the form is probably the first thing that you do. And so you are going to want to put the journal control on the form. So it gets a little confusing as to the order in which things work. Right now, I don't have a milestone group that I can use. I mean, I do have milestone groups that are used in other processes, other forms, other process timelines. They're not really relevant to what I am going to be building here today. So there is no milestone group that I can use. But whenever we begin to build our form and our process timeline out a little bit, we are going to be adding some milestone groups to both the form and the process timeline. Well, actually, I'm going to add a milestone group, and I'm going to use, in this case, the same milestone group in my form and in my process timeline. Now, I might not do it that way. I might have a different milestone group on my form and a different one on my process timeline. Indeed, I may have different milestone groups on the same form and the same process timeline. There's no real limit on the number of milestone groups that I can create. At this point, for this process, I have created none. So I have none to select, but ultimately I am going to have one, and I am going to have to select it so that I can display those milestones inside the journal control. So unlike the comment log, which can only take these individual comments, we not only have the improvement of threaded comments, but now we have the ability to track these milestones inside the journal control so that we can display them along with any threaded conversations we have, and we may or may not allow threaded conversations. We can have multiple milestones. We can have, or multiple journal controls on a form, one where we track milestones and one where we have threaded conversations. We now have a lot more flexibility in what we can do. But we need to have at least this basic understanding of what the milestone groups are and the fact that we can configure them on the form or the process timeline or what have you, so that we can understand the scope property. All of that was to get us to the scope property to talk about it. So now that we have these milestone groups and we can place them in our form or in our process timeline, on a journal control, we have to decide how wide the scope we're going to set for what milestones we can display in that particular journal control. By default, it is set to form instance. So what that means is with this scope is I can go into the form definition for this form and go to the milestones tab, and I can create as many milestones and indeed as many milestone groups as I want to create. And all of them that are there on the form are accessible to me in a single journal control, if that's how I want to display them. If I have multiple milestone groups inside a form, there's an excellent chance that I want to place them in two different journal controls. So that is a much more complex implementation question. We'll discuss that in a little more detail later. But form instance gives me access to the milestones that I've configured on the form. This is the default. I think I would argue that it is a bad default, but I may be wrong. That's just, I'm not sure whether form instance or process instance should be the default. I know it should be one of these, and I'm inclined to thinking that process instance should be the default for the journal control. It's not, but it's probably the scope that you will use the most often because it does expand the milestones that we can grab, because now we can grab milestones from the form itself or from the process timeline that are associated with the form. I think this is probably the most common way that I would do this. I think that inside an application, I want to have the same milestone group for all of my milestones. I might have multiple groups, but I think in general, I would have the same. And that's what we're going to do today. I'm just going to use the same milestone groups for everything. And in that case, I'm probably going to want to show milestones from both the form and the process timeline. And the reason for that is there are things that happen in the form that aren't really related to the process timeline and vice versa. And so to give me the most flexibility, I would want to set this to the process instance. Now, there is a big exception to that, and that is if you are using cases. Now, if you're building a case management application, in all likelihood, you now have multiple forms and multiple process timelines, all of which are doing different things, but all of which are related to a case. So in the context of a case management application, I might want to be able to grab any of the milestones. In fact, I think there is one case where I would argue that I absolutely want to set it to the case instance, and that would be in the primary case form, whatever that might be. So generally what happens in a case, not always, but generally, is that you have a case form that you can open up to see where we are in the case and what it is that we are doing in the case, as well as seeing the original request that kicked off the case. So on that form, or on some form somewhere, I am probably going to want to have a journal control that shows me everything that has happened in the case. So every milestone that has occurred in that case, I'm probably going to want to have some sort of journal control that is sitting up there showing me all of the different milestones that have been fired and all of the forms and all of the process timelines that are part of that specific case instance. And so in that case, I would just set it to case instance. And that would limit the scope to just stuff that are in whatever my current case instance is. And then there's no scope. I'm not sure how often you use no scope, because no scope means that I am going to be able to pull any milestone from any form or any process timeline that is running on my system. That might end up being a very, very, very busy journal control if I decide to do that, but it is an option that is available to you. So you can actually track everything that's going on or every milestone that's firing on the system, with one slight exception. Irrespective of what scope we set, and in this case, we're going to set process instance on our scope because we are going to be making some milestones, both on the form and on the process timeline. There is one more limiting factor, and it is that button I clicked a little bit earlier, the milestone groups button. So as I said, I haven't created the milestone group that I want to use here. So there's nothing that I can choose at the moment to make this thing work. I'm going to need to have at least one milestone with the milestone group specified so that I can choose it. But what this allows me to do is just pick those milestone groups that I want to track. So for example, let's say that I had set my scope to no scope. So I was pulling everything that exists in my process director installation. I can still do that, but I would have to choose all milestones to grab that group so that it would pull. As you can see, I have many milestones in many different places, but I have all of these milestones, and I might want to track all of those, and I would click all milestones and select it to grab all of those. Also, do notice that as we look at each of these milestone groups and I open it up, you can see that each specific milestone group has its own specific milestones that only run for that group. And what this allows me to do is, if I don't want all milestones, but I might want these milestones and those milestones right there, and maybe these milestones, I guess, I can just pick and choose among all of the milestone groups that exist on my system, just to pick the ones that I want. In this case, these three milestones that I've selected here, and these will be the only milestones that get tracked. So I can theoretically set my scope to no scope so that I have access to everything on the system, and yet still go into the choose milestones dialog box and pick and choose between the milestones that I actually want to display inside the form. Now, it does get a little tricky here, because note, I have process instance chosen as the scope. Now, this is where things can run off the rails, although it will not run off the rails in a destructive way. It will just be a non-responsive way, because I don't have any milestone groups, at least for this form, or its associated process timeline. So if I were to go to choose milestone groups here, it's still going to let me choose a milestone group. And we could probably argue that based on the scope, it shouldn't. Because let's say, okay, I'm going to go and pick this milestone group, which is shorthand for journals and milestones. This is probably 3 or 4 years old. Okay, I can do that. And it will add that milestone group that I've selected. But of course, at runtime, it's not really going to show me anything, because I've already set the scope here to the process instance. I'm not using this milestone group in my process. So therefore, it is out of scope. So it is possible, because you have these two, and these are basically both scope related selections that you have. I can actually choose something, as I've done here, that is out of scope of the process instance, and nothing will be displayed to me. It's not that I'm seeing the wrong information, it's that I'm just not going to see any information. And that's fine. I wouldn't want to see that information anyway if I made a mistake, because it's running in another process and it would just be confusing to me in the context of this process. So just keep in mind that the scope that you choose and the milestone groups that you choose are kind of two different scoping methods. And if there is a crash between them, then the scope is the primary control that wins that conflict. So if I choose something that is out of the scope of, in this case, the process instance, it's just not going to let me see it because it is not included in the scope of milestones. So I really have two levels of scoping. This is the primary level. Usually when we talk about conflicts, we're talking about it in terms of controls, right? So let's say I want to enable a control and the parent control, the section is disabled. I can do that because in control conflicts, like visibility, well, not visibility conflicts, but enabling conflicts, the control at the lowest level wins. That doesn't really affect here. This is really the higher level one, and this is the controlling one. So when we talk about milestone or scope and milestone groups, the highest level, the scope, wins. So just something to keep in mind when you start choosing your milestone groups. I think in most cases, you're going to have a unique milestone group for each application. I think the number of times outside of case management applications where you want to see milestones from a different application are probably pretty small. So in the real world, what you're going to do is just create a unique milestone group for each of your applications, and that's the milestone group that you're going to use. And indeed, that is what we're going to do here today whenever we create our milestones. So just keep in mind the possibility of conflict between scope, and if there is, then whatever the tighter scope is will win. So just keep that in mind. Now we come to our height and width controls. I am always really conflicted about this. Not conflicted about width. I think almost universally, I would want to set the width at 100%. Some may argue with me on that. And there may be cases where, based on the layout of your form, you might want to do something different. I'm a big fan, though, of ensuring that, at least as far as width goes, I am going to make my controls as responsive as possible. And I think 100% for width is always the best solution there, because irrespective of whether I am throwing this control into, say, a 2-column table, and I want one column to be the journal control, or I may have 2 journal controls that I want to have sit side by side. I think 100% width is always your best option, because that will just take up the full width of, if you put them in 2 table columns, it would just take up the full width of the column, which would effectively be 50% of the page. If it is not in a column, it'll just go ahead and take up 100% of the page. If it is shown on a different size viewport, so the form is opened up on a tablet or a phone, the width is automatically going to scale to 100%. And that's generally always going to be appropriate for responsiveness purposes. So I would say width 100%. Where I really have trouble is that height control. I certainly don't want to force people to scroll horizontally ever. So 100% solves that. And I am going to accept that people are going to need to scroll vertically to fill out a form. How much do I want them to scroll? How high do I want that control to be? And I don't know what the answer is. I think 300 is probably a little too small if you're going to have an active control, especially if there's going to be threaded conversations. Um, by default, the control allows threaded conversations. Just allow / view user comments. That's the default setting. So by default, it allows user comments. If you want to get rid of user comments, you have to turn it off. But if you're going to allow user comments, then you have this tension between it's got to be, the height has to be large enough to be able to fit in a decent part of a threaded conversation, and to have to scroll on the control itself as little as possible, because that is the other issue. Page scrolling is one thing. Control scrolling, especially in the context of a mobile device like, an iPhone or an Android phone, or I guess Linux phones now, or the people who want the most in privacy Graphene OS. Um, when we're talking about phones, control scrolling is always a little iffy. It's really easy to scroll the page up and down, but when you have individual controls that are scrollable, especially phones, it's not as bad for tablets because you do have a lot more real estate as far as your viewport goes. But on phones, if you have a control, especially if it's going to be an active control where there are going to be a lot of user comments, if I set this thing to 300, I am going to have to probably do a lot of scrolling on that control to see all those comments. It can be a little tedious, but I don't really know what the happy number is. I think personally, I've come on the 500 pixel height if I'm going to have a journal control that is going to be, relatively actively either commented or is going to show a lot of milestones, because that's going to remove some of the necessity for scrolling that control. It won't completely eliminate it, but it will make life a little bit easier for the user. Of course, the problem is that the higher I make it, the more vertical space it takes and the more I have to scroll, say, on my phone. And I don't want to get into a situation where I have to scroll both the page and the control in the same on the same phone screen. That starts to get a little iffy and tedious too. So if we're thinking about accessibility and responsiveness, that height property is always problematic. Another property that is happily less problematic is the refresh interval, which is to say, how often do I want the control to refresh? So by default, when I open the form, the journal control auto refreshes. Not so much in terms of conversations, because those conversations have already happened when the form was already opened, and then they close the form, you reopen the form, you get the conversation in whatever state it is when the form reopened. And you also get all the milestones that have occurred. So everything updates on form open. I think for most cases, that's good enough. However, again, we get into the situation is, what if this is a form that a lot of people are looking at and multiple activities are running at the same time? So there are multiple approvers, and there may be multiple conversations. Having it refresh only when I open the form might not track everything that's going on well enough for me to follow. So that refresh interval is an interval set in seconds where the control will simply auto refresh after it's opened. So if I have a very, very active journal control where all the stuff is going to be happening and people are having threaded conversations and I want to be able to keep up with that, I might want to set a refresh interval of 30 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever time interval you think is fine, so that the journal control auto refreshes so that it catches up to any milestones or conversational threads that have been added since the last refresh. So while most of the time we don't fill this out because most of the time there's just not that much activity going on in a journal control, you do have the option of setting a much more aggressive refresh interval. The allow view user comments we already talked about. It's turned on by default. That's what allows people to make comments. If you turn it off, no one will be able to make comments. And the little text box in the bottom of the journal control will simply disappear along with the send button. Nobody will be able to add comments there. We assume, however, that comments is primarily why you're using the control. And so if you want your comments to go in a separate group, you can create a comment group for just storing those comments. The reason that you might want to do that is, let's say I have multiple journal controls on my form, and I don't want the conversation in one journal control to be replicated in a second journal control. After all, why have two journal controls if I'm going to do that? What I'm usually wanting to do is bifurcating out one conversation from the other. And so in order to do that, we need to set a comment group inside the control so that comments that match group A do not show up in a journal control, a second journal control on the form where the comment group is group B. That way I can have two separate journal controls that are containing two separate sets of threaded conversations. This is much the same concept as we have for attachment controls, where each attachment can have its own group name, and I can have multiple attachment controls on a form, each with their own different group name, each of which is showing me different attachments that are, specific to that group. It's the same concept here, where I have this group name that I can set up for the commenting. All right, so let's talk about some milestones. We'll go ahead and create a milestone here on this form. The way that we're going to do that is I'm going to add a checkbox. Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. Okay, what's going on here? There we go. Finally got my cursor. That was what I was looking for. My cursor was lost somewhere. I'm going to throw a checkbox here, and I'm just going to give it the text, make form editable. So let's talk about a scenario here. And this is a scenario where a milestone is actually fairly important. There is I haven't configured it, but let's configure this control to create an event. So we'll go to the field properties control, and we'll go to this event, and there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my form to be non-editable after I submit the form. Now, that is a standard practice. It's one of our recommended best practices. You submit a form, the form should become non-editable. And then you just make fields that are editable, that are appropriate through the course of your process. So the initial request, you probably don't want to allow just anybody to edit it, but you might have some fields that you want additional information from reviewers or approvers or what have you, and you would make those fields editable as appropriate. It's a good security measure. It also prevents people from inadvertently changing values on the form because you're only giving them access to fields that they should be editing at their particular step or participation stage in the process. But there are times when it would be useful to make the form editable so that you could change it. So I've got a checkbox here that will do that, or eventually it will do that. It is an event field. So basically, I am going to have to set up an event that will make my form fields editable if this is checked. Now, when I do that, that is going to enable me to edit anything I want on the form. Now, the only thing that's on the form here is this conversation. However, now I've got an editable form. And as long as I have the ability to make it editable, who knows what I might have changed on that form. I, at the very least, want to track when that form was made editable and who made it editable. So if down the line, whenever we're auditing things, if there is any question about what the data on the final form is, and someone says that's not what I initially put in, it would be nice to know when somebody came in and edited that form. Now, we do have the audit viewer so that we can track all of the changes. That does require administrative access to see the audit viewer in the form and to see who made those changes. What if I just wanted to let everybody know that at some point the form had been made editable, if for no other reason, so that they could peruse the form to ensure that nobody had changed any of the data that they had placed into the form? Well, a milestone is a good way of doing that. Now, it's not really a form event. I mean, the form event is actually checkbox click. Well, checkbox click doesn't really tell me much. I need to know when the form was made editable. So that is a good candidate for a milestone that I could create on the form. Now, I would normally do this in a much more complex version. I would only expose this checkbox to people who I felt could be trusted with the authority to make the form editable. I'm going to do things much more simple in this particular version. I'm just going to permanently enable this field so that I can click and check it whenever I want. But I'm going to go ahead and I've got my journal control. We're good there. And I am going to save and close my form. And once it is saved, I am going to set this property here. Form fields are enabled only when, and I am going to set this to new form instance equals true. So when I have a new form instance, all of my form fields will be enabled. Once I submit the form, everything is going to be disabled. Now, that includes the journal control. And I generally wouldn't include the journal control in that. So let's make this a little bit clearer here. Let's update my form. And we'll go into Process Director. And I'm going to go ahead and, yes, I'm aware of this weird view issue. Sorry about that. Engineering team needs to fix that placeholder. But I am going to go to the field properties and I'm going to set this to enabled to. There we go. It's showing me what I should be seeing. I'm just going to throw some text boxes on here. I don't really care about them much. I just want us to ensure that these are disabled fields so that we can't make any changes to them. I am going to keep both the journal control and the checkbox editable so that we can see we can make changes to them. Because generally, the journal control, you would want to keep editable anyway so that people could make comments at any time. If you're going to disable the form and you disable all the controls, as I've done, then that would disable the journal control too. then nobody could add comments to it, which kind of defeats the purpose of the journal control. It's one of those exceptions to I want all of the controls to be disabled. So now we can save and close our form. And we can go ahead and test this real quick. I'll just go ahead and submit it. So we'll just run our form. And there we go. We can add our little conversation, send our message, and I'm going to go ahead and submit our form. And now these two form fields are all disabled. That's exactly what I expected, but my checkbox and my conversation field is not disabled. The checkbox doesn't really do anything. I can check or uncheck it as much as I want. It does reload the form, but it doesn't really have any practical effect. We need to give it a practical effect. And that's where our milestone comes in. So what I want to do is I want to inform everybody that this form was at some point made editable. And I want to inform people every time the form was made editable. So I'm now going to need to add my first milestone. Now this is going to be a form milestone. So we're going to hit add row here. And then I have some triggers. When we look at the process timeline, we're going to see some different triggers because process timelines have different events. The events that I have available to me on a form milestone are when an attachment is added. So whenever I upload an attachment to the process, or whenever I edit an attachment, I check it out, I download it, make some changes to it, check it back in, that becomes an attachment update, and that kicks off an event that I can use to kick off a milestone. The form's submission is an event anytime the form is updated. So basically anytime any of the data is updated and the form is resubmitted or resaved, that event fires. I can pull on any form event and I can have it fire, or I can have it run on a condition. So I can choose condition met. That's what I'm going to choose for this one. I think often form submitted is an event that is common, and form updated to let you know that data has changed. I'm just going to go with condition met because it may not fire. And by the way, there's one event that is going to fire every time I click the checkbox. That is a form event. Well, I don't want to do it on just any form event because it's going to run this milestone over and over and over, especially if I have multiple form field controls with multiple events. I only want it to happen when a particular condition is met. Now, the nice thing about form events is that whenever a form event happens, the form reloads and it forces a condition reevaluation. So what that means is if I click, every time I click the checkbox, the event is going to be evaluated. I only care if that checkbox is checked, because if the checkbox is checked, I want the form to be enabled. If it is unchecked, I want the form to be disabled. So now I create my milestone group. Now, so far, we haven't been able to set a milestone group because one hasn't existed. Now we've got one that will exist. So I'm just going to call this webinar MG. So that is it should say webinar MG. That is my milestone group. And I'm going to call this milestone form editable. Now, think about what we're doing. We are making a new event, a new milestone that doesn't actually exist in the form. Now, we are going to set the form field to be editable if I remember to do that. I'm not sure how important it is in terms of talking about how the milestones work. But this event doesn't exist on the form. This form editable is something new and it is only going to fire when the condition I'm going to set will be set to true. So essentially, whenever someone makes the form editable. So now I'm going to click here to change icon, and I am going to set my color to red because I want to catch people's attention. So we'll set it to this nice bright red. And where's my little icon that I want? There's a pencil icon. There's actually a pen icon that I like better, which I could spend a long time searching through all of these icons, and I'm not going to submit you to that torture. I am just going to set the red pencil icon, and I'm going to set a journal entry. Cool thing about journal entries, I can use system variables. So I can say the form was made editable by, editable by whoever the current user is. I have been working too much in Zendesk, which uses double curly braces, and I have apparently muscle memoried myself into trying to use double curly braces in Process Director. So the form was made editable by current user on, and we'll go with cur date time. And we'll be ensure that it says date time instead of date time. Now, I only want this to fire whenever the form is being made editable. So I will click here to create condition, and the condition that I will add is whether my checkbox 2, is checked. So if checkbox 2 is checked and the event fires, I want that condition to be met, and I want to update my journal control. Great. I have a milestone now. I guess I better save it. So let me update the form so I have a saved milestone. And I'm probably going to want to go back here and have my new form fields are enabled only when new form instance equals yes, and we'll set our, I'm already on form field. I just need to select my checkbox. Is checked. So form fields are enabled only when it's a new form instance, or checkbox 2 is checked. So now I should be able to make my form editable simply by clicking the checkbox, and of course it will be editable on any new form instance. And I already have a running instance, I believe. So let's just pop that one right back open and take a look at it. All right, everything is disabled. We are cool so far. We can now click Make Form Editable. The form was made editable. Oh, you know what? We have more configuration to do. We can't do this yet. And I even said we still have to configure the journal control. We now have a milestone group. So I can go in to my form control. And unfortunately, I have to go into the form itself, and I have to select this. Now I can choose my milestone group. I didn't choose one earlier. I should have. But now that one exists, I have my webinar MS group, which, oh, wait a second. Oh, no, that name already exists. Webinar MS. Okay. Oh, no, this one is webinar MG. Okay. I should only see one condition met there. That is my webinar MG milestone. and we'll hit OK. And we got to talk about the milestone group names. As you see, you can get easily confused, or at least I can. I'm not saying you would be, but I would be. And as you see, I have been. So let's save and close our form again. And we'll just hit OK here. And we can go back to our form instance and we can pop it back open. And there we go. I used a square bracket. Syntax is super important. And that is why that didn't work. So clearly, I need to go make some changes on that milestone. So we will go back to our milestones tab. And sure enough, that is a square bracket, not a curly bracket. So we're going to have to go ahead and save our form again. And we'll have to refresh this form. Now, unfortunately, system variables only work at the moment they are evaluated. So this event here is permanently going to be cur date time. Also notice, even though we did not see the milestone message appear in the journal control initially, the milestone happened. It existed. As soon as we went into our journal control and we set the webinar MG as the milestone group to track, the second we reopened the form, it refreshed and that existing milestone was added to the form. So again, if I do this one more time and hit make form editable, now it's going to tell me exactly what we wanted because I now have two valid and working system variables. And so it evaluates them and it prints out this text. And once the text is printed out, of course, this is what it is. This will never change. So every time that I make the form editable, it's just going to keep adding another milestone message. Now, as you can see, depending on how many milestone messages, it might get a little confusing if I both allow threaded comments and also milestones, because now I've got a whole bunch of different things. Oh, another thing, collapsible threaded conversations. I forgot to mention that earlier. Yes, you can expand and collapse your threaded conversations. But this is going to start to get to be a busy control if I'm having both conversations and displaying milestones here. So this is where the use case for having multiple journal controls on a form become a little more relatable, because this is now starting to become a busy control, largely because I simply can't stop clicking on the make form editable checkbox. So I keep adding milestones. Let me complete my task and close the form. And let me run a new instance of the form. Note, even though I do have a bunch of milestones in that milestone group, the scope of my journal control is at the process level. So all of those other conversations took place in that other form in a different process. So I don't have to worry about those conversations, even though they're in the same group, being ported over to this new instance, because now I'm out of scope. Let's go back and look at this milestone group. Now, here is the problem. We don't know how many milestone groups you want to use on a form or a process timeline. And we didn't want to have to create a completely separate UI to track milestone groups beyond the choose milestone dialog box. What that means is that all of your milestone group names are just text. So let's say that I created a new milestone group. Webinar MG is not the webinar MG milestone group. You have to be super careful about the name of your milestone group. So I find copying and pasting is your friend, because any sort of typo, even typos that might be hard to notice on a quick inspection, are not your friend. I now have, again, two groups. I have webinar and webinar MG. So it's super important that your milestone groups be the same. But as long as I have those two groups, um, we'll just go with cur date on that one. Wow. You know what? I can live with the capitalization changes, but the spelling has to be correct. And we'll give this an event. What was the old? Okay. Well, who cares? We'll just use a martini glass, whatever. And now we'll just hit update and run. And I've got my form. I'll fill out the form fields and I'll submit my form. And it did not show the form submitted. Not sure why that didn't show up. It is webinar MG. So let me go back to my form instance. Oh, let me update or save. Okay, cool. But I'm not sure why that didn't fire. Webinar MG submitted. This should be always, so I'm not sure what I am missing here, because I'm sure it's probably something on my end. So we'll run. We'll submit the form. Okay, form submitted is not showing up. It may be because of my create condition. So we'll just say, we'll try to force it. I forget how to set it to always. Okay, so now I've got a condition that should always fire. Okay, not sure what's happening. Not sure why the form submitted one isn't firing because I am definitely submitting the form. What we are not going to do, however, is go through some sort of lengthy troubleshooting as to why that is not working. Um, because as far as I'm concerned, the fact that this is working gives me what I need. So we're good to go. We have a form group. I'm just not sure why this other milestone is not firing. Um, so you know what? We're just going to go ahead and delete that, and I will have the engineering team look into what might be happening. So for now, actually, you know what? I should not have deleted that. What I should do is send that off to engineering. So you know what? We're going to go back and refresh that. We're going to keep that. And that way I can have the engineers look into whether it's just me being an idiot, because, that's always possible during these webinars. I'm trying to do stuff, I'm trying to talk stuff and all at the same time. And sometimes things just slip my mind. All right. So whenever we come to the milestones on the timeline, as you can see, we get some different triggers that kick off the uh, milestones. So in this case, I'm just going to do activity completed. So whenever an activity completes, and did I copy something? No, I did not. Webinar MG. Great. So I'm going to use the same milestone group because I want timeline milestones to appear on here. And then milestone name, I'm going to call it first approver. And on this, we'll go with something nice green color. And um, we'll use the stopwatch. Why not? And the journal entry is um, the initial approver has completed their task. Now, normally I wouldn't do this in the real world on just what the end of a particular timeline activity was. I mean, it's obvious that that timeline activity is over. It would show up in the routing slip on the form and so forth. I'm just using an easy way of grabbing a grabbing an activity just to be able to create a milestone based off of it. Now, I would have to be very careful here because activity completed is going to fire. Well, it's only going to fire once on this timeline. I should probably add some more activities on this timeline. In fact, I'm going to, because I'm going to need to just to test this. So activity completed is going to fire every time an activity is complete. Now that I do not want to happen, because this is only supposed to fire when the first approver has completed their task. There may be other things that follow after that. Maybe it needs to go to HR or whoever, but the first approver is my first hurdle. So I'm going to only want this to fire when the first approver completes their activity. And so I'm going to add a condition. I think I remember what the condition I need to add is. And if not, we'll go look at the completed one that all works so that I don't have two failures in a row. Um, Timeline activity, running activity name is, and we'll say it is activity one. So we only want this to fire if the activity completed is activity one. I'm pretty sure that that is the appropriate configuration for that. And now that I've set that, we do, in fact, need to go back over here and create at least one more activity so that I can review it. And so there we go. We'll go to activity 1, and then activity 2 will be a review activity. And don't look at what I'm doing here. You're seeing nothing. This did not happen. And now we can save and close our timeline. And we can run our form again. And blah, 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 submit our form. For whatever reason, the form submission one isn't showing up. We can make form editable. That is showing up. Okay, great. We'll make it disabled again. I will now complete my first task, and it will go into my second task, and it is not showing me the activity is being complete again. Okay, this is getting frustrating. And so I'm going to assume that this is my problem. So activity completed, activity completed. Okay, this should all be working here. So we're going to go into our completed application, and we're going to run that one. Run, and there we go. There's my form field. I'm going to submit my form. There we go. There's my milestones. New form submitted. Okay, I have clearly missed something talking through the configuration. I'm going to go ahead and, well, there's my comments. Send. I'm going to do that. Oh, let's make this form editable. There we go. The form was made editable by me. Okay, cool. I am now going to hit approve, and you cannot submit while the form is editable. Wow, was I being really persnickety whenever I created this? All right, fine. Now the form is no longer editable. Will it allow me to approve? It will allow me to approve. The supervisor has approved this request. So we now know that I am a fool and that I have misconfigured something. So you know what? We're just going to go back and look at how I configured this so that it makes it work. And then I'll hit documented. Does something happen on documented? Let us see. Documentation is complete. Yes, something happens on documented as well. So let's take a look at all of these milestones. Since it works here, and since I'm apparently incapable of replicating it, let's just go ahead and look and see the milestones that we just demonstrated. So this is what I did. I have no idea whatever it was that I did on this form that didn't work, I don't know what I did wrong. But here is the actual form submitted, which, as we just saw, we know works. So we know that this form will be submitted. I know what I picked here. I picked the leaf because I should have turned it green, but it's a new form. We're turning over a new leaf. That's why I set it up here. So again, check your milestone groups. Be sure that they are correct. You can use your appropriate system variables in all of these fields. So this is what I just did and apparently was incapable of making work on the form that I just created live. And that is why I always have these applications that worked when I made them so that whenever I try to recreate them, I ensure that I have a fallback, and this indeed was my fallback. You know what? I did not put even the simplest little, I got to at least have let's go with, I like that purpley color there. And I need I can use the book, but I was actually looking for the little document icon. There really are, whenever you start, especially under pressure, whenever you start looking for icons, boy, they become super hard to find, don't they? So we're going to use the book with the check mark. So these are my timeline milestones. All three are happening when activity is completed. Now, the reason that I have 3 on activity completed is because of the condition. I want the running activity name to equal the, whatever the running timeline activity is, supervisor, manager, or documentation. So different messages are going to fly based on the different activities that are being completed. And when the activity is complete, it's just going to run each one of these milestones. Again, note, we're using Webinar MS, Webinar MS, and Webinar MS as our milestone group. We're going to hit OK here. So I've got 5 milestones that are going to run inside my process timeline. Now, on this particular form, since we're here and we're looking at it, this is an example of a form where I am doing 2 different things with 2 different journal controls. On one journal control, I'm allowing user comments, but note, there are no milestone groups chosen. So this very first journal control, which is called comments in this case, this comments control is only going to display the user comments, the threaded comments that get made inside the form. The second journal control is called milestones. Now, milestones is not going to allow user comments, but it is connected to the milestone groups here. So therefore, it will throw the milestone groups or the milestones that fire from the Webinar MS group. I think I know now what my configuration problem was. I think because I set it to process is where it was all going wrong. So I think I had the scope wrong on that one. So this one, I kept it set to form instance and it works. So I think the problem with my other form is the scope. I think we can test that real quick to be sure, but I think I set the wrong scope there. I could have been wrong in my explanation of what the process instance was. But then why did the one form one work? Not sure what is happening back there with that scope. But in a few minutes, we'll go back and we'll reset the scope on that on that journal control, and we'll see if it works as expected there. So that's what my 2 controls here do. So whenever I run them, then we can just go through and do both our comments. And of course, as we saw a minute ago, we can submit, we can make the form editable, we can turn that back off, we can approve as approver 1, and now supervisor has approved, and now the manager has approved. And then when we hit documented, we're not going to actually see it unless we reopen that form instance. And we can see our little purple book with the check mark for our documentation. So everything worked exactly the way that we expected it to. We're going to go back up here and we're just going to see if this is just me getting the scope wrong. So we'll set that back to form instance. We're going to save and close it. And the reason that we're going to save and close it is that now that it's set to form instance and we hit OK, if I go back and look at my form instance, well, what do you know? There's my submit. It works. it does exactly what it's supposed to. So if I hit complete there, form was made editable. It was submitted. I can make it editable again. Okay. All right. Well, those have all completed their process, so they're done. But okay, I had the scope set wrong, so that was my fundamental problem with that one. So at least we know that it was configuration on my side. Everything works as expected with the milestones here. And with that, I don't think that now that I have got everything properly configured and we've seen everything work, I don't think there's much more to talk about for the milestones or the journal control. You just have to be careful whenever you set them up, especially with the milestone group names. Oh, there is one more thing that we do have to talk about with the milestone group names, and it is tedious, and I don't like it, but it is what it is. If we go back over here, let's go and we'll go back to edit. And what we're trying to do is get back to choose milestone groups. The trouble with the milestone groups is that once I've made them, right? So I have one called webinar one. Okay, so that's pretty much this. There's the webinar MS, which is my sample project. So there's this group. There is this journal and milestones one from who knows when, probably from whenever we very first put it on there, called Joe Me. Um, then there's webinar MG, which I just created. So that exists. And I have two for advanced design, one for the sample project and one for the completed advanced design concept project. And that's the one that contains all of these different milestones. I can't get rid of these now. I mean, I can't just go in and say, all right, we're done. Let's get rid of these. The only thing that I can do to get rid of these, so we'll go ahead and hit cancel here. And we'll go back up here to our webinar folder. And what I'm going to have to do it the hard way is I'm going to have to, if I can find the milestones, I'm going to have to come in and individually delete all of these milestones, which means I'm going to have to delete them from here. And I'm going to have to go back over here and delete them from here. I guess I didn't make any here. Okay. I didn't save them. So fine. So I'd have to delete those milestones, or I just have to delete both of these sample projects. So we'll get rid of the sample one. Since we have the working one, let's keep that one and we'll get rid of the sample one. Okay, great. So those two objects are gone. Great. So now if I go back up a level to my journal form, and we'll go back in and go to the design view and click on one of these. No, we'll click on this one. And I hit choose my milestone groups. I still got webinar MG. It still exists. It's still there, even though I deleted everything. Once you create these, you're kind of stuck with them. Now, I don't know if this is a cache deal because both of the milestones are actually gone. I mean, they're not there. But they're still showing up as blanks. So it's one of those deals where what you are effectively doing whenever you go in and you create a milestone group is you are creating a new database entry that uses that new milestone group for generating the choose milestones dialog box. So it is a little bit tedious whenever we create these, you're basically doing unknown back-end work in Process Director by just creating a milestone with a milestone group. That is creating a database entry. I think what I should have done, and I didn't, so I've messed up. Now I'm not sure I can go back and recover. I think what I should have done is just gone ahead and deleted both of those milestones directly so that whenever I deleted the form, those entries would change, because I am in fact creating database entries in table milestone whenever I create these milestone groups, or whenever I create each of these milestones. And these milestone groups are creating their own little entries here as well. So you're kind of building stuff on the fly, and we're just sort of letting that happen in the background and making the changes to make it simple for you. But it does get us back to the problem where if I go back over here and I save this form with this bad name, it's going to create a webinar group called Webinarm MS, and it will not be the same group. And sure, on the form, I can fix it, but now I've got this Webinarm MS milestone group that I've created, and a milestone that I created for it. So think about what you're doing here before you hit the OK or the update on either the form or the process timeline. We've made the front end really simple for you. And that means to do that, we've had to do some complex stuff in the back end. And so to make your life a little bit easier, so that whenever you go into your form and you start looking at milestone groups, the last thing you want to do is just have a whole bunch of, well, like I have a whole bunch of crummy milestone groups that I'm never going to want to use again, like this one and this one, or this one, which I didn't make, but Chris did. This one, I need to get rid of all of these. And I am not going to take the time to go back in and manually delete each individual milestone to try to back myself out of it. If I want to get rid of them, though, that is really what I need to do. Because now I got to live with this for the rest of my life. So, well, actually, I don't. I could just go back in and delete everything from table milestone. I mean, that would work. So I could fix this with SQL, but if you're not a SQL person, then that might not be something that you are interested in or willing to, or even capable of doing. So just something to keep in mind, because we're so loosey-goosey in allowing you the freedom to just throw in these milestones and create milestone groups on the fly. If you end up at the end of the day not wanting those milestone groups, it then becomes relatively painful to back out of it. So just keep that in mind as you're going through and throwing journal controls on everything, which I am, of course, sure you will now do. I am done talking to you today. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great week, great weekend. We'll look forward to speaking with you again next week. Until then, so long.